morning, Sac City. Welcome into another episode of the Sac City Podcast. I'm your host, the one and only Vinny Milani, joined as always by your boy, AJ Johnson. Below him, we have my best friend in the whole entire world. He is Aaron, the Mukesiah Mukes, who looks very frozen. Oh, he's back to life. And beside him, we have the reigning, the defending, the undisputed heavyweight valedictorian of the show, Dylan Kearns. It is a beautiful July 14th morning here in the city. Episode 54 is about to kick off. We are diving into and completing our fantasy outlooks with the NFC East. That's the Cowboys, that's the Commanders, Giants, and Eagles, talking about that and so much more on this episode. AJ, how goes it this morning?
It goes well. It goes well. If I may do this, because I know they're listening, I got to shout out my boy, my brother, my Tampa family, my boy Stewie. It's his birthday, so happy birthday to my guy. Appreciate you and your lovely bride-to-be supporting Sac City.
Bride-to-be? Whoa. Bride-to-be?
He's engaged?
Bride-to-be?
Engaged. I'm pretty sure he's been engaged since you've known him.
This man,
I've always heard girlfriend. I've always heard girlfriend.
I mean that could be my fault. Maybe
Stewie
I don't do
not
a good
innocent.
enough job of talk. Maybe all right. The truth is, I've been jealous. You know that I was replaced, so I never really gave her that
that's
Beyonce status. But it's his birthday. I'll do that. You know.
Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy.
I don't have to. It's always bros before wonderful, lovely, respectable ladies.
That's on him though. Fucking up trying to get wifed up. That's on him. Messing up, making bad life decisions though. But hey, shout out to the boy Stewie for happy birthday and an engagement that no one on the show knew about, but all that good times, good moments, and congratulations.
Months,
oh shit! Well then, all right, congratulations. All right, well let's get into some headlines here this morning for football talk here. Aaron, we're talking about the Cowboys here today. There was a report from the Athletics, John Makata, reporting that Cowboys wide receiver Jalen Tolbert will head into training camp as a presumed Week 1 starter, with Michael Gallup unlikely to be ready for Week 1. Do you think that Jalen Tolbert could end up being the wide receiver 2 for this team if Michael Gallup were to miss an extended period of time? Even when Michael Gallup gets back is what I'm saying, though. Like, if he were to miss, like, the first 3 weeks, you think Jalen Tolbert can secure this job as the wide receiver 2? Messed up by asking him that question.
Oh.
Hot start.
I mean, he looked like he was waiting patiently. I was excited. I was intrigued. The suspense was rising as you asked the question. I definitely thought he was ready to go. I mean, if you want,
look good, fellas. He doesn't look good.
Doesn't look good, Bob. Doesn't look good.
Look at him.
Dylan, what do you think?
We're just gonna hide him for right now. And there he goes into the darkness. But no, yeah. So Jalen Tolbert might end up being the guy, and we have wide receiver rankings in just a few moments. So, does anyone think Jalen Tolbert can end up being the guy in Dallas if Michael Gallup were to miss an extended period of time?
So I'll say this, slight spoiler alert. He was going to be my honorable mention, and not because I don't think he's good enough. In my he would have made my last spot if I put him on, and I decided to go another route, and you'll see why when we talk about it. But we talked about Jalen Tolbert's talent when we were talking about the draft. We do think he's got a good pathway to be used in this offense. They throw the ball so much. So there will be targets in this offense for him, especially with Michael Gallup and being injured for the beginning of the season. But lo and behold, as I was doing my rankings and looking, Michael Gallup may be back sooner than a lot of people are actually expecting from what I've been reading in consensus. So, he's going to have to pop off immediately, I think, to control a consistent pace of targets throughout the entirety of the season before Michael Gallup comes back.
Mm-hmm. I like Michael Gallup this season. Now, hopefully, assuming that he is now going to be the wide receiver 2 with Dak Prescott, now Amari Cooper gone. We're going to talk about the wide receivers in Dallas in just a few moments. But actually, it looks like Aaron's back. Buddy,
No,
this is probably even more frustrating for you because your internet was – yeah. So see if you can answer the question while your internet's good.
The answer is no. I don't believe Jalen Tolbert is going to be the wide receiver 2. I don't think Michael Gallup's going to be out as long. And I also don't think Jalen Tolbert is going to be listed as a starter, nor will he start. I don't think that's a thing at all. I think James Washington, being a veteran that he is, having the experience, will start over him. And you guys may not know this name, but Noah Brown will get snaps over Jalen Tolbert to start the year. He's a better blocker in the run game. He's been in that offense for 3 or 4 years now. I'm not saying Jalen Tolbert won't ultimately take over some of those guys as the season goes on, but to start the year, I don't believe Jalen Tolbert starts the year as a starter. I don't think that there's any chance that happens. And by the time he does get in there, Michael Gallup should be returning and back to form. I don't buy that report.
That's the worry for me, is that by the time Michael Gallup is ready to return, whether it be week 2, 3, or 4, it's not enough time for Jalen Tolbert to win that type of job. I liked him coming out of college. You guys know he was in my top 10 for the wide receiver class. I liked him a lot. I think him being in Dallas is a good spot, but I do agree that he might not end up being the wide receiver 2 anytime soon in Dallas. But Aaron, while we still have you here for the brief moment, the Chiefs and Orlando Brown are making headlines because they're nowhere close, quote, nowhere close on a deal. They franchise tagged him this spring, but he still has not signed the tag, and they are nowhere close on an extension. How does this impact the Chiefs going into the season?
I mean, Orlando Brown is a veteran. Why would you sign it? Look, this happened. We get this every year around this time. A few weeks before training camp, it's the dead time. None of these veterans want to go to training camp. None of these guys want to have to report and then go deal with the dog days of summer and have to go to these practices that they feel they don't need because they've been in the league for such a long time. The Chiefs will get this deal done because the Chiefs have invested too much in Patrick Mahomes not to get this deal done. I think this is a matter of let's hold out, let's wait. Orlando Brown doesn't really want to come to training camp anyways. Let's play this out a little bit longer, and then eventually they'll offer him a deal that he signs and moves on.
So what you're saying, and let me see if I'm getting this right here. It seems like, based off what you said and what I'm seeing in the media, it's like the media is trying to make this a really big story, always trying to hold out this and that. But in reality, it's Orlando Brown saying F training camp, F all these practices. I'm good to go, ready for the season. I'll sign that damn thing when I'm ready, and then we just move on and go on with our happy ways.
Yeah, there's no rush, right? Listen, we are all 4 members of the media. When is the most dead time for football? It's between June and July. It is right now before training camp. Every reporter is looking for stories to talk about. So anything is going to seem like a big story. Right, we've been fortunate. We've had Baker Mayfield trade, and some things happen, but people are looking for stories, and this is the best we got. Is a guy, a veteran that's been a really good player in this league, who's, quote, holding out because he doesn't get a contract he likes. Things will happen as we get closer to the season.
It's fishing season. It is fishing season. That's what it is for the media right now. But that's our morning headlines. Now we're going to get into our rankings, our final rank it for our divisions. It's the NFC East tonight. And we've got not just one, but 2 different positional rankings because I feel like there's some debate. There's some debate. So AJ, you are the leader of this clubhouse here when it comes to rankings. So we'll start with you. You are ranking the wide receivers in the NFC East. What's your list look like?
All right. So we mentioned a little bit ago the honorable mention of Jalen Tolbert. We talked about how my eight spot works before the show. But so this is the way I went with it. And this is after looking at a couple things, and I enjoyed kind of making this list. I'm starting at the top with CeeDee Lamb. I'm coming down to Terry McLaurin second. To think about this, they made CeeDee Lamb the number 1. Amari Cooper, whether it's money, whether it's aging, whether it's lack of production to an extent, they trust CeeDee Lamb to be the number 1 after a 1,000-yard season, and they throw the ball so entirely often. I think he'll have a good shot there. Terry McLaurin just read up, and he's the heart and soul of that offense. The surprise that most people might have is A.J. Brown at 3. Now, part of this is, one, he's coming into that new offense, but he's a very talented receiver. But looking at Philadelphia last year, even when they needed to, they did not pass the ball as often as you would think. We're talking in 21st to 23rd ranking in passing offense last season. And that's even when Miles Sanders was hurt. You can talk about Jalen Hurts taking away some of the targets because of his running capability. So I do think to start the season that might hinder him a little bit. So I got him slotted in at 3rd, and I think Devontae Smith comes right in there. to kind of contradict everything I just said, I think this is still going to be a potent offense. So I think these two guys back and forth and with Jalen Hurts can do some damage on that offense with the weapons they have. Number 5, I went Jahan Dotson. He's just a spectacular rookie, and I think he's going to come in and fit right into that Washington Commanders offense. Despite what we say about Carson Wentz, he does love the deep ball, and Jahan Dotson's a speedster who, with incredible hands, and can be a deep threat. Number 6, Kadarius Toney. We can argue with the talent; he could be higher, but there's so many questions in New York. I mean, they were talking about him not even being there at the beginning of this season. We talked about the injury last year. Really, we're taking this off of a couple big games. 7, Michael Gallup. He could be higher, probably should be higher, but coming off that injury, there's a chance he's either going to be out for the first 4 weeks, possibly 5, and that's just what they're saying at this point in time. So I'm taking Gallup at 7 with the thought process that he will be higher on this list, to be honest. And then number 8, I went Wan'Dale Robinson, grabbing another guy in the New York atmosphere, a rookie who we think is talented. And honestly, there ain't nobody else in there that really excites you. So why not take a flyer on Wan'Dale and see if he takes over Kenny not so smooth, and Sterling can't stay on the field. Shepard and Darius was once upon a time fun Slayton. So that's the 8 I went with, and I'm cool with it. I'm all right.
Okay,
I feel all right with it.
Aaron, how does this look? How does this look compared to last night's list? How are you feeling about this list today?
It's a much better list. It's probably AJ's best list so far. I have a few. I have a few that I don't agree with, but he gave pretty good reasoning as to why. I think Jahan Dotson is a little bit too high for me. I have Michael Gallup ahead of those guys. I'm okay with 1 through 4. If you had AJ Brown at 2 instead of Terry McLaurin. But I did like Terry McLaurin there for one reason. The inaccuracies of the Jalen Hurts, and also there's a little bit more mouths to feed in Philly now with Devontae and AJ Brown. They might split some of those targets that Terry McLaurin I still think is going to be the heavy favorite for volume there in Washington. I would have put Kenny Golladay on the list. I know he had a bad year, and I know it wasn't the ideal situation for him, but they've paid too much money for him, and they've invested a lot in him to just not play him. So I think he's going to be on the field, and I have to assume it's better than it was last year. I would have picked him over probably Wan'Dale Robinson for sure. Kadarius Toney's tricky because I do think they want to get him the ball. So I probably still have Toney over Kenny Golladay, but I think Kenny Golladay might have been my number 8.
My question comes in at that 8 spot too. And another name that I got, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, AJ.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking, you mentioned paying big money. Someone who had a bad year last year. I still wouldn't 100% rule out a Curtis Samuel. I think that guy could have a bounce back year this year. Not saying he's going to be spectacular or anything, but I think I like moving Dotson off of 5. I think maybe sliding Gallup to 5, maybe Toney's at 5. Somewhere the 5-6 is Toney Gallup, whichever way you want to put it. 7, I think, is safe with someone like a Jahan Dotson, a rookie. And then at 8, I'm looking at either a Kenny Golladay, a Curtis Samuel, someone like that. I wouldn't go as far to say like a Zach Pascal in Philly or someone like that. But I think a wide receiver 3 that's solid like that is more – that has a better track record, that has shown that they can be a good fantasy receiver as opposed to yet another rookie in a crowded wide receiver room.
I mean, they really liked Curtis Samuel, though. They really, I mean, Ron Rivera really liked Curtis. That's not a bad
thing. They paid him a lot of money. They paid him a lot of money. I worry about the volume in a Washington offense to support 3 in the top 8. Because you also got to account for J.D. McKissick. That might be a Curtis Samuel instead of a Jahan Dotson, and it would not surprise me being Jahan Dotson's a rookie. I think the Curtis Samuel play is sneaky play. He's got to stay healthy, right?
That was my thing. He was one of the guys that I wanted to put on the list, but I mean, to be honest, he's more of an exciting player than a he's shown it type player. When he's been on the field, there's been some electric moments, but there hasn't been a level of consistency that makes me strong enough to put him on this list. Now, talking about that 8 spot, you weren't here yet, Aaron. I told him that 8 spot for me throughout all these rankings has just been kind of been my wild card. Like, let's throw some guy on there that no one's really thinking about, and like, who knows? Maybe they have one of those seasons that pop off. And with Jahan Dotson, man, he's just so damn talented. I know I've said that about the rookies that I have put into that top 5, top 6. I think they really like him in Washington. And I think they're going to try to find ways to get him the ball, to give Terry McLaurin not a rest, but make sure that everyone knows you're not just guarding Terry McLaurin. You're not just guarding Antonio Gibson. Like, we have weapons on both sides of the field that you have to pay attention to. So that was a thought process there. And then Kenny G just kind of scares me. I don't know if he'll ever get it back. And if it is, I don't know if it'll be in New York.
Yeah. Is there, and I'm not sure about this. Has Carson Wentz ever had multiple wide receiver options be relevant in fantasy when his time was with Indianapolis and
Well, no. I mean, you can't do that because everybody complained about the weapons he had in Philly. So that's not fair. If he didn't even have the weapons in Philly, it's not ever had a chance.
That was just me asking. I could not recall if
I was going to go there.
On Jeffrey.
But no, you bring up the tight ends though. It's the tight. It's being able to.
I was going to the multiple
Goddard and Alshon.
I was going to the multiple quarterbacks in the division. Like, we're listing these guys. Some of these guys are just not going to be. I mean, they're going to be fantasy relevant in some sense. They'll have weeks where you can play them.
Right.
But from top to bottom, this is a weak quarterback division that we have questions about. Daniel Jones, Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts. The only one that we know is solid is Dak Prescott. We know he's going to put up numbers when healthy, and we know somebody's going to catch the ball out there. Whoever's on the field is going to be fantasy relevant because they always have. So I worry about, and I don't want to say I worry about guys like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith because I think they're both going to be good. But if Jalen Hurts turns out to be the inaccurate quarterback that he's been over the past 2 seasons, or they run the ball significant, those guys fantasy value is going to take a significant hit. And I think we're not going to get the value of what we thought those players could be. Same thing in Washington with Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin. That's great. You have all those weapons. But if Carson Wentz isn't good, that's not going to matter. One of them might be fantasy relevant, but it's going to be hard for 2 and 3 to get on that radar in a fantasy perspective.
Let's shift over to the running back position. And Dylan, you had the honors of breaking down the top running backs in the NFC East. Surprise, surprise. So let's break it down. Running backs.
Wait. Before you bring up the list, you tasked the man who hates Zeke, who hates Saquon Barkley.
I texted him that immediately. I said, "You sure you want to give me these running backs?"
There's a reason. There's a method to my madness here. So this is it. This is it right here. There's
Boston
a reason
Scott why number 1. I'm slapping him.
There's a reason why I've given AJ the task of doing the rankings because normally he throws in a wild card. And it's a very good talking point. And then with Dylan, you have no idea where Dylan's going to go. and so this works. So Dylan, take it over. What's the running backs in the NFC East look like?
Honestly, this list was fairly easy for me. I'm sure Aaron will have his fair share of debates with number 8. But let's just start off the top. I mean, you can't go wrong. It's Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Antonio Gibson, Miles Sanders. I wanted to put Sanders higher. I'll get into him in a second. Tony Pollard has a lot of value. J.D. McKissick, a great pass catcher. It really bothers me sometimes people when it comes to PPR wide or running backs that catch passes out of the backfield. People are afraid of James White's. People are afraid of Danny Woodhead's, Deion Lewis's, these guys that just catch passes out of the backfield. But I mean, they do it. They do it year after year. I remember Aaron last year. Well, screw McKissick. That boy ain't nothing. Antonio Gibson's a 3-down back. Well, McKissick still had a role, and he still put up numbers, and he was fantasy relevant. That's why I think he's a solid 7 on this list. I think he's still a 6 on the list. Kenneth Gainwell, I feel, I mean, there's still something in the tank for him. And laugh at me if you want for having Matt Breida on the list, okay? But this guy's yard per carries are nuts. Saquon Barkley shown he's been inconsistent when he's not healthy. Say he misses games, whatever. Matt Breida's a solid backup in this league. That kind of got overlooked last year because he was in Buffalo and barely saw the field. But this is a guy who led this team in rushing in 2018, a guy whose yards per carry is absolutely through the roof when you look at his total. He averages throughout his NFL career 4.9 yards per carry. He's got 7 touchdowns in his career. He's a solid backup running back, and I think he's a decent enough handcuff to where, hey, if Saquon does go down, he can provide fantasy value as opposed to throw a dart up there with a Ryan Robinson in a backfield that's a little bit crowded in Washington with a bunch of shit there. I think at least there's a clear path for Breida if he does see the field.
Haven't we seen that in New York though? With like when Saquon goes down, the running back that always fills it. I mean, Devontae Booker was it, Wayne Gallman, like that. It just happens in New York where if and when Saquon Barkley does go down, that RB2 that steps up, lately has been productive and has been fantasy relevant. I mean, Wayne Gallman was hot I remember he was a hotness. He was a hot pick for fantasy owners. So I don't hate your Matt Breida take at all, to be completely honest. I was impressed by that take.
It's a big word, impressed by Matt Breida.
I'll just say this. I'll just say this. You can't hate on the Matt Breida at 8 because no matter what running back you put there, I'm probably laughing at it. If it's Brian Robinson, I'm going to tell you Jared Patterson might be the guy in Washington after Antonio Gibson. If you said Antonio or Jared Patterson, putting Matt Breida there is simply a product of you saying Saquon's been injured, that he's the backup in New York, he would get the first opportunity, and that makes him fantasy relevant. That's all that does. It's not Matt Breida has fantasy relevance. He has zero fantasy relevance with
neither
Saquon
does
Barkley.
Boston Scott, Brian Robinson, or Jared Patterson, or
but that's not true. That's not true. That's not true because the upside of a Brian Robinson could overtake somebody and be on the field, even if Antonio Gibson's there. Matt Breida is not supplanting anybody.
I think on this though is something that we haven't talked about there. I mean, you brought up Brian Robinson and saying, okay, like if he were to be the guy, who's to say he can't be if he steps in, he can't be that dude. But we have seen it in New York where with multiple running backs.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying, listen. What I'm saying, what brings confidence in, and this not just being insert RB3, RB2 in your number 8 spot. Matt Breida might be the safest person to put in that RB or in that 8th spot because of the history that we have seen in New York. It is not like throwing a Brian Robinson out there. It is not like throwing a Boston Scott out there. It is not like throwing any of those guys out there. We have seen in New York the guy who comes in for Saquon Barkley has been productive.
You've seen it in both the places you just mentioned. You saw it in Washington last year when Jared Patterson got the run over Antonio Gibson when he was benched. He was fantasy relevant. You saw Boston Scott be fantasy relevant. You saw Kenneth Gainwell be fantasy relevant.
When those
guys are injured. What I'm saying is anybody that's a backup running back in the situation that Matt Breida's in, if the lead back goes out, the backup's going to be fantasy relevant because running backs aren't easy to find. What I'm saying is when you pick that 8th spot, I'm not arguing with Matt Breida being there. I'm really not. I'm looking for a guy that may have fantasy relevance without needing an injury. Brian Robinson could be that. Kenneth Gainwell could take over Miles Sanders as bad as he played at times last year. Kenneth Gainwell got run over Miles Sanders last year. If you watch the beginning of the season, remember he was scoring, Vinny. We were mad week 1, 2, and 3. Those guys were getting carries and run
week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All because Miles Sanders didn't have a goddamn touchdown last year.
That's all I'm saying is I get your point with Saquon, especially the injuries he's gone through. Matt Breida can fit in at number 8. I'm just saying I look for guys that I know have an upside and potentially don't need that injury. Matt Breida will never supplant Saquon Barkley if they're healthy. So that's what I'm saying is he needs things to happen for him. That's all. I like the pick at 8. I didn't even want to talk about that.
He needs something back up. He needs something to happen that has happened for 3 straight years.
Bring the list back up. And I'm going to debunk this thought for the final time. I am done talking about this topic of J.D. McKissic and James White and these catching backs that you think are so valuable. J.D. McKissic had a great year last year. J.D. McKissic finished as RB 37. He had 212 yards rushing and 300.
Who cares about rushing? He's not a rusher.
No. He had a total of 500 yards on the year with 4 touchdowns. He was running back 37. In his career, which you said he's always been productive, he has finished no better than running back 37. Except for 1 year in 2020, and that was the big year with Antonio Gibson when he had 80 catches. He's finished running back 55, 136, 49, 128. Those are all PPR. Stop with this, he's productive. He always does it year after year. It's false. Not true. Fake narratives. You're not drafting J.D. McKissic.
Mr. Aaron Mukes, I'm coming to you with the notion that I know what I'm getting from a J.D. McKissic. I know his role. I know he's going to catch passes out of the backfield. And don't make that face. Don't put your hand on your head. Don't put your hand on your head, Aaron.
You're
Okay?
getting nothing.
No,
the same
you-
guy
you
who
know
doesn't
what
want
you're
to have
getting
DJ
here.
Metcalf
So you're
because he's
telling me you'd rather have a
inconsistent.
Kenneth
And you're going
Gainwell
to tell me
higher
you
on
know
that
what you're
list?
getting? You know what
What?
you're getting from J.D. McKissick
What?
from week in,
Yeah,
week out?
I know a guy who's going to come in on third down and catch balls because he did last year when you said, oh, Antonio Gibson will be out there. He wasn't.
Dylan, he had
McKissick still
43 catches
balls.
last year in 17 games. 40,
Yeah.
How many? That's less. That's like 2 a game.
He missed games last year.
Oh, my God.
He
Oh,
did.
my God. Yeah, he did.
He did. Yeah. It's kind of hard to catch more than 43 balls in whatever games because he missed games.
Dylan, J.D. McKissick has had one good season.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
He had one good year in 2020. Prior to that, he had 34 catches. This is not some guy that is a high volume guy. You watch 1 week when he has a great week, and then you go right to, oh, he's productive. That is so false. It is the biggest fake narrative out there. You talk about him taking away from Antonio Gibson. Say what you want. Antonio Gibson finishes RB12. And you want to talk about all the inconsistencies you don't like from players, and yet J.D. McKissick, who has 1 week with 1 catch for 6 yards, and then maybe 3 weeks out of the year, he goes hard and gets 8 catches, 60 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But that's a guy you want on your team? But you cry about everybody else being consistent.
It goes back to this.
Have you ever drafted J.D. McKissick?
Yes, I drafted him last year. You remember?
J.D. McKissick goes undrafted damn near every year in fantasy football.
And
then somebody picks him up on the waiver. Okay, but that's different than picking him up. Drafting is not the same.
At this point, it might
got
be
him
the
for
driving
$1 in an
point.
auction draft.
So I like someone like a Carson Wentz who checks down. He checked down to Sproles. Like he looks down at these guys. He will check down to a J.D. McKissick. And Aaron, by golly, it's 6 on the list. Okay, are you more confident? Would you rather me have Kenneth Gainwell up there, who's going to surpass?
No.
Mr.
This
Mr.
wasn't
Miles
about where he had
God.
him on the list. This wasn't about where AJ had, or you had him on the list. It's about what you said about him. I have no problem with J.D. McKissick being 6th on the list.
Because it's where he should be.
But when you talk about a player and you just give false information about he's productive, he does it year in and year out, that is false. That is not a true, accurate statement. He doesn't do it year in and year out. He did it for 1 season. 1 season. You can't even point to last year. He sucked last year.
Yeah. Now he's got a quarterback that checks down. I like him.
Oh, okay. Taylor Heineke never checked down.
Oh, goodness gracious. All right, now let's move on to our fantasy outlooks for these NFC East teams. We're going to start things off with the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to try and shift everything over back to the wide receiver position, back to you, AJ. We talk about Michael Gallup to kick off the show. You had CeeDee Lamb at number 1 on your wide receiver list. Yesterday's show, if you haven't checked it out, go check it out on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. We talked about how – what was the wide receiver group? It was Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. We talked about how they could potentially have that type of season where it's like a Jamar Chase, a T. Higgins, where both wide receivers are heavily fantasy relevant. Maybe not 2 wide receiver ones, but a wide receiver 1, a wide receiver 2, solid seasons. Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, how should we view those 2 wide receivers, and do they have that type of potential?
As wide receiver 1s for both of them?
Yeah, that type of high, that like what we talked about last night with Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, where they have the potential to be high-end wide receiver 2 and a wide receiver 1, something along those lines.
So I think CeeDee Lamb has absolute potential to be a wide receiver 1, and I think you're getting high-end wide receiver 2 from Michael Gallup if he comes back in that early time frame I discussed, and if he stays healthy for the rest of the season. Let's not forget, he missed the first half of the season before coming back and being serviceable and then going out in week 17. The fact that they're talking about week 3 or 4 after an ACL tear in week 17 is actually fantastic, and props him if he can make it happen. So I think he has wide receiver 2 potential. He can do a lot of things. But CeeDee Lamb, I've been on him since he was drafted. I thought last year he would take over the number 1 spot. And, you look at the stats and you look at the way the season went, you could argue that. But the biggest part of this entirety is that Dallas just throws the ball so much. And I know we're not talking Dak yet, but when you look at it, this man threw the ball over 35 times, 14 times last season. He threw the ball over 50 times twice, over 40 times 3 times. Like, they are throwing the ball heavily in Dallas. And with that amount of target share going around, whether it's to CeeDee, whether it's to Michael Gallup, whether it's to Noah Brown and Jalen Tolbert and James Washington and Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard, there are targets to go around. CeeDee Lamb was given the keys. They got rid of Amari Cooper. They did pay Gallup to help him out, but CeeDee Lamb is expected to step up and be the number one receiver, and I think he has the potential to do so in Dallas and in fantasy. And Michael Gallup is always going to be a guy who, when he's on the field, you feel like you can trust and you feel like you're going to get good production out of week in and week out. So being on a high-powered offense like that, and probably one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFC East, you can look for some great fantasy production from both of those guys.
Dak Prescott, the past 2 full seasons, has thrown 596 times. 596 attempts, both in 2021 and 2019. It kind of actually ties into my question to Aaron, and really it ties into what AJ just said. Talk about how much Dallas is throwing. Dallas has something now that I don't remember the last time they had this good of a I don't remember the last time they had this good of a defense. And I know we don't talk too much about DSTs in fantasy football, but we're not going to talk about DSTs in fantasy football. To you, Aaron, how does having a good defense, though, impact the offensive production from a Dak Prescott and even to a CeeDee Lamb or a Michael Gallup?
It doesn't. I can't believe you asked me this question.
So no.
What the hell does a defense have to do with my fantasy football?
No, hear me out here. I saw that. I read this today, trying to get the show ready. I'm like, okay, what kind of questions am I going to ask about the Dallas Cowboys? And I saw someone bring up the fact that the only concern with Dak Prescott not being arguably a top 5 quarterback in fantasy football is if Dallas is in more game scripts where their defense is controlling the game, they're shutting a team out, keeping them with not as many points, to the point where you don't have to have Dak Prescott throw that many times. You don't, which then turns into CeeDee Lamb not getting as much work, which then turns into Michael Gallup not getting that much work. Not saying that they're not going to be relevant, not saying that they're going to take that big of a hit, but it is an interesting thing to think about if your defense is that good to where your offense doesn't need to do as much.
It's a reach. It's a reach for people trying to find something to talk about in fantasy football.
In June and July.
Dak Prescott threw the ball 596 times last year, right? They had one of the best defenses in football last year. So what changed? The fact is they played 3 games or six games, against the NFC East. He usually torches the NFC East. But we don't talk about going back to 2016. Dak Prescott was a number 7 PPR quarterback his rookie year. He threw 459 times. The very next year, his number 10 quarterback, he threw 490. So this is not a guy that's always had this high volume. Dak Prescott has always been efficient in their offense. So the Cowboys are going to score points because that way that offense is built, they are going to put up numbers. Their defense just happens to be good. The fantasy impact has none on Dak Prescott. He's throwing the ball more now than he was running it before, but the touchdowns, the yardage, it's still going to be there. That offense is just the way it's run. It's too good of an offense not to put up fantasy numbers. Does that equate to wins? No, not always, as we've seen, but they will put up fantasy numbers. Dak Prescott is a lock to be a top 10 quarterback. In my opinion, he hasn't been less than a top 10 quarterback except for 1 year, and that was in 2018 when I believe Zeke missed time, and then obviously the year he, broke his leg.
I'm pretty sure in that year. In that year, he was quarterback 12. He was still a QB, a low end QB1. In the year in 2018, the year you talked about him not being a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, he was QB like 14. I mean, he was close.
Yeah.
He was not quite a QB1, but Zeke was suspended 6. I mean, they were bad. They were pretty bad. So I don't see this. I think the biggest impact we talk is at the wide receiver position. Michael Gallup, if he plays an entire year, is going to be a high-end wide receiver too. If you remember, Michael Gallup had the year when Amari Cooper got traded there, they had 3 guys with almost 1,000 yards. Like he had 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns. Like there is room for that wide receiver 2 in Dallas. If there is a sustainable wide receiver 2 there to be a high-end valuable fantasy asset. It's just about whether he's going to be ready. But if you can get him down the stretch, I think that's big. But Dak Prescott's going to be quarterback 7, 8. Could be higher. He could be higher. They're talking about running him more this year. I don't buy it. But I do buy the stuff of him saying he feels like he's in the best shape of his career. A year now removed from his leg. He's been working out like crazy. His body, I know Dylan always laughs at me for saying this, but his body looks good. You know what I mean? It's not like he's looking slow or anything.
Nice.
So he might get back to the running for touchdowns near the red zone, which his first 2 or 3 years, he had 6 each of those years, which we talk about in fantasy is so big.
Let's talk about Michael. We talk about Michael Gallup. He is going right now as the wide receiver 50. And
too late. It's too late.
That right there. I mean, he's going right around guys like, he's going behind Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, Kadarius Toney, Chase Claypool. I'd have him over all those guys, to be completely honest.
I would too.
Do you think
the fear is
he one of those players? We talked about it on these shows before, where as we get closer to real draft season and you start getting the reports from training camp and how his health is doing, he's going to be one of those players that you see climb right back up draft boards. How high do you think he ends up climbing up, though, at draft time, if he still progresses and is looking to be on track to come back within the first 3 weeks of the regular season? How high do you think where do you think he should be getting drafted?
If he comes back by week 3, I'm drafting him right where guys like Adam Thielen are being drafted. Okay. Wide receiver 28, 29, 30. I'm drafting him there because I don't think there's a chance in hell if he plays 14 out of the 17 weeks that he's not a wide receiver 2.
Hopefully these camp reports don't really AJ Green you in the ass. I mean, that's the way they did a few years ago. Remember, they were like, "Oh, he got his toe. It's okay. It's okay." Yeah. Oh no, it's not okay.
Yeah,
that's honestly though. That's where just kind of being diligent and doing your research on players. AJ Green had a little bit of turmoil, right, with the organization. He wasn't happy. Michael Gallup's there. They paid him. Like, he's there. He's playing for him. He wants to get back on the field. And you hope that he doesn't turn into a guy like Michael Thomas, which I don't think he will. But, from what I know about Michael Gallup, not that I follow him or anything, but, I do follow his social media.
How's his body?
You mean to tell me you don't follow Michael Gallup like Dylan follows Jesse Bates?
No. I mean, I could tell you what he posts on his Instagram and how he works out and how he's a different type of breed and all that stuff, but that don't mean nothing.
Built different.
Work out on
he built different.
Oh, he doesn't work out.
Michael Gallup, I know, is all about football, at least what he posts to the public. Like, everything he posts is about football. He loves the sport. So I think he will be a guy that wants to get back on the field. And he's said it a number of times. Week 3, give me him at wide receiver 28, 29, 30-ish.
All right. Can he run a 4.5?
No way he goes to wide receiver 50. No. I will take him in every draft way before that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He'll end up getting up there come draft time. Let's go over to the Eagles, though, here. Dylan, we'll kick things off with you here. Miles Sanders, last year, obviously, the story it's right there. 0 touchdowns for Miles Sanders last year. Broke a lot of people's hearts. He was a fantasy darling heading into last season and then ended up falling off. And I don't want to say falling off, but disappointing fantasy owners. How should fantasy owners this year feel about Miles Sanders?
I love Booby Sanders. My gosh. Miles Sanders. Are you kidding me? I mean, I know a lot of people are pissed off. He didn't find the end zone. It's an offense that didn't really get it done. Last year, the guy missed a few games throughout the course of the season. Right in the middle of the season, he missed some games. But this guy, when he got the carries, was in great shape. And something clicked about halfway through last year, right? They were 3-6. They realized, man, what we're doing with Kenneth Gainwell, shout on Aaron, and the way they throw the ball and everything in the first half didn't really work out. So about mid-season, once they were 3-6, they're like, man, we need to run the damn ball. And that's what they did. Right then, this is Miles. I mean, he was all over the place, right? Yards per carries were intense. Look, 4.93. I mean, 5.88, 5 yards per carry, 7.28. He gets great yards per carry. He gets great run. And you look at week 14, he was RB 14 there. It actually is 6 for 94. The 5.88 he had. That's against the New Orleans Saints, the number 1 rush defense last year. It doesn't matter his matchups. He did that against the number 8 defense, 131 yards, ripped that off. I don't care about that. I think this guy is built for a good season this year. And I know you can say what you want about Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell being there. when he gets the carries, he will be productive. And I believe he will get the carries this year because he's in a contract year. They're going to try to ride him all throughout the course of the year. And if any indication shows the way that they ran the ball towards the end of last year, they're going to start giving him that work. Hopefully he finds the end zone. I think it's something he could do. He only has 9 career touchdowns across 3 years. But all I'm saying is keep your close eye on Miles Sanders. He's not going to be an RB1, but maybe he could be an RB2 or at least a solid flex throughout the course of this year. I think he's being underdrafted where he's at right now. I think contract year volume alone should get him enough carries because those carries that he had towards the end of the year, 3 out of the last 5 weeks, he went hard.
Right now, he's being drafted as the RB26.
Great take, Dylan. I agree with everything you said except for one thing. My only concern about Miles Sanders is the volume that he's going to get. I don't know if he can sustain. I don't know that I believe he can be a guy that gets the volume that I believe he should get. On the field, there's no debate. I think the dude is special, but he just doesn't make it through games. And I'm so like I want Miles Sanders to break out because I do believe I've been a big Miles Sanders fan for the first 3 years of his career, and he lets me down every year, and I still go back to the well every year because I do see the potential. And you mentioned the games he had. I just worry like he's the guy that gets you 9 carries and then sprains a toe, leaves the game, comes back in the fourth quarter, gets 2 more carries, and you're just like so frustrated with that. This is it to me. This is probably my last year on Miles Sanders. If it doesn't happen this year with the weapons they have on the outside, the spacing they do in their offense, and their running game with that offensive line, which is pretty good, then I'd probably give up on Miles Sanders. But you said everything you said about him is spot on.
He only had 21 red zone carries last season as well. Like, do you think that changes at all this season? Is that a stat that we could see change this season?
It's hard with a player like that because 21 red zone carries or whatever. He didn't have that many carries on the entire season. And then you talk about him missing, and you talk about missing 5 games. Like, I don't read too much into that. So you said he had 135 carries?
Yes.
So if he had 135 carries and 21 of those were red zone carries, that's a pretty decent percentage. That means a little over like a 1/7 of his carries were inside the red zone. I don't think there's anything to that. I think they'll use them by the goal line. It's not like they have some goal line back that they take his carries away.
Boston Scott put 7 in the end zone.
Yeah, when Miles Sanders didn't play or when he was hurt, Boston Scott gets in the game.
Like that's get in. AJ Miles Sanders like Clyde in the red zone.
AJ, obviously, the addition of AJ Brown to this offense changes everything or adds a different layer to this offense, but the quarterback is still Jalen Hurts. You talked about it earlier on in the show with how you ranked AJ Brown behind a Terry McLaurin because of Jalen Hurts' rushing ability and what he brings to the table at the quarterback position. How does Jalen Hurts impact AJ Brown's fantasy production as a whole from what we are used to seeing him produce in Tennessee?
I just think it gives another level of dynamic playmaker when it comes to Jalen Hurts. Not to get me wrong, Ryan Tannehill, when he began, he could scramble a little bit. He'd get out of the pocket, do this and that here and there, but it wasn't the big threat. If the play broke down, sure, Ryan Tannehill could get loose. But Jalen Hurts is a guy you have to prepare for to take off as soon as the ball is snapped. We're talking about a guy who ran the ball double digits at least 7 times last season. This year, I think the whole point of getting an A.J. Brown was to be able to allow him to unleash his arm a little more. Jalen Hurts hasn't had the best stats when it comes to throwing the ball, only averaged 61% on completion rate last year. But I think that he's capable of better than that. We've seen him be great in college. We've seen the talent step up to the NFL. I think he's going to benefit this year from having the same play caller for the first time since high school. I think he's going to benefit from having weapons just about anywhere he looks. And then when it comes to the A.J. Brown factor, these guys have such a strong friendship. I believe that in a good way, they're going to try to force the issue. I'm not saying making dumb passes and throwing ones you shouldn't, but I think he wants to get A.J. Brown the ball. I think he wants A.J. Brown to show that he was worth the $100 million that they paid him. I think A.J. Brown wants Jalen Hurts to succeed. I think you're going to see a lot of these guys, A.J. Brown using his yards after catch to make Jalen Hurts look better. I think Jalen Hurts using his vision, his ability to get the ball to a big body like A.J. Brown will show some of the talent that A.J. Brown possesses. I'm very high on the Eagles as an entire offense this year, and honestly, as Jalen Hurts as a QB for fantasy purposes. I think he has top 5 potential this season.
I like how you brought emotion and mental stuff and like not other things other than the on-field stuff. Their friendship. He brought up their friendship.
Yeah, let me know the last time. Let me know the last time friendship helped you be more accurate as a quarterback. The only thing I'll say, there's one thing that I consistently worry about with Jalen Hurts, and it is the accuracy. I agree. Fantasy-wise, I don't think there's a debate here. Jalen Hurts is going to be one of the top fantasy quarterbacks because of his legs alone. He'll throw enough because he's a quarterback. The accuracy is a problem for me, though. Most quarterbacks, when you're inaccurate, you can't learn that. Like, it's just something you pretty much struggle with accuracy your entire career. We've seen it with guys before. Quarterbacks usually don't become more accurate. Usually accurate passers remain accurate passers. Jalen Hurts was not an accurate passer in college. He had the fortune of playing at Oklahoma his last year, which threw ball 2 yards down the line of scrimmage, which completed a lot of passes. But he's never been known as an accurate passer. So I worry about that in an NFL offense for longevity for him as a football player. But from a fantasy perspective, go draft him because he's going to put up fantasy points.
So what? And Aaron, you love to just absolutely shit on these types of questions, but I did, and I have seen some people concerned with AJ Brown in fantasy this season. So shifting it to the AJ Brown part of it, and they're concerned with what Jalen Hurts brings.
Yeah.
What do you have to say to those people that think that this might be a downgrade for AJ Brown?
I don't think it's a downgrade. They're going to probably throw the ball a little bit more in Tennessee, just because Tennessee is strictly a run offense. And let's not mince words here. It's not like Ryan Tannehill's accurate. He's one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in the NFL as well. So it's not like he's going from a super accurate quarterback to somebody that's inaccurate. I think the biggest thing that helps AJ Brown to keep him from having that bad year is Jalen Hurts' escapability. There are going to be a lot of broken plays that are going to find AJ Brown. Defenders get lost. AJ Brown's going to catch the ball. And there might not be, outside of a Tyreek Hill and maybe a few others, there's not many guys that are better with the ball in their hands after the catch than AJ Brown. He's a physical specimen. He's hard to tackle. He's got blazing speed, and he brings a lot after he catches the football. So I think what he loses in maybe opportunity, because he was the only target in Tennessee, and now you have Devontae Smith, I think he gains in broken plays and just his physical prowess on the football field. And maybe there is a little bit of a connection there with Jalen Hurts, that Jalen wants to get him the ball a little bit more.
It's good friendship.
Outside of maybe Dylan's point being correct a couple of weeks ago, maybe Philly decides to be run heavy. And if that's the case, if they turn into this, hey, we're going to run the ball a ton, and Jalen Hurts is still only going to throw 25 passes a game, that could hurt both him and Devontae Smith at that point.
Yeah.
That was one more point I wanted to bring up on Sanders. Essentially, you mentioned if they were to run the ball a little bit more, their defense is a lot better this year too. They could be in games where they do tend to run the ball a little bit later if they get leads, and I think that could help them. Last year, they were playing from behind a little bit. They were game scripted. Plus, their schedule's a cakewalk this year.
Is it?
Yeah. You want to read it?
We haven't got the schedule break. We haven't really got down to schedule breakdowns, have we? Like,
they got the Lions,
close to the season.
Commanders, and Jags 3 of the first 4 weeks.
We talked about this when we first broke down the schedules when they came out. We all know this. Looking at a schedule is nice, but once the games start, that shit don't mean nothing. Because there's going to be 6 new playoff teams. The Lions going to
put up numbers with them? Come on.
We'll dissect more of
upset in week 1.
We'll dissect the fantasy football schedules for these players closer to the season. Let's move on to the Washington Commanders here. AJ, you and your love for Carson Wentz. I'm kidding.
Christ.
Kidding.
Just put a ring on it already.
Yeah, he should. Oh well, no. Carson Wentz already has a ring.
Hey, you and Stewie can both be engaged.
Oh goodness gracious. I don't. Okay. Carson Wentz. How does Wentz impact Terry McLaurin? Obviously, Terry McLaurin has been quarterback proof, but he hasn't had Carson Wentz as his quarterback. So how does that impact Terry McLaurin?
Dude, Carson Wentz is still the best quarterback Terry McLaurin has played with in the NFL. Like we're talking about an upgrade from Taylor Heineke. Sure, he was fun. Sure, the crowd loved him when he won game 1 or when he dove for the pylon in the playoffs. but Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Taylor Heineke. Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than what hipless Ryan Fitzpatrick would have been. The other part of it is Carson Wentz.
Disrespectful.
What about Alex Smith?
Is it? I mean, Alex Smith might have got there, but then he went out like Theismann. So again, I stay where I'm at. Anyways, I think Terry McLaurin. I don't want to say that it's going to be a huge difference because, in all honesty, like you said, McLaurin's been quarterback proof. He's been able to put up numbers regardless of who's been there. What I do think will happen is Terry McLaurin may be able to be a deep threat if they so choose to use him that way, because Carson Wentz does like to throw the ball down the field. Carson Wentz was the top 5 in average depth of targets 3 of the last 5 seasons. In 2 of those, he was in the top 5. So I think that you're going to see a couple more opportunities for Terry McLaurin down the field. I think that may open up some of the extra points, especially if you play in some of those like whack leagues with like 40+ yards, 50+ yard stats, and things of that nature. But other than that, I mean, he's gonna be able to show if he can be another year better with a quarterback that is better than what he's played with, for lack of better words to use.
Terry McLaurin's going to be Terry McLaurin. Doesn't matter who plays quarterback. The problem is I'll say it again.
Guy who can't catch.
I'll say it again, and it's just so it hurts me because I love Terry McLaurin. It doesn't matter. His name value has more than his actual production. He's not great. Like
now
people
keep talking
about Terry McLaurin is great, but he's not a great fantasy option. He's a wide receiver 2. He's never finished better than wide receiver 20. In 3 seasons, he's put up 1,000 yards every year. No, I'm not saying you don't take it. What I'm saying is that there are people out there that Terry McLaurin's name will get you a trade deal that you'll be like, I don't know how I just robbed this guy for the wide receiver 20. Like, you look at some of the other guys that sit around wide receiver 20. Like Hunter Renfrow put up a year like that. Like if you said him, you're not trading the same stuff for Hunter Renfrow that you would for Terry McLaurin, right?
No, you have been very consistent on a lot of points. This one is probably your most consistent point on all of our fantasy football shows. Whenever Terry McLaurin gets brought up, it is trade Terry McLaurin on name value. You'll get more than what you should. That's been the most consistent thing with Terry McLaurin. Antonio Gibson, on the other hand, last year we talked about Miles Sanders being a preseason darling last year. Antonio Gibson was a preseason darling that really, I don't want to say really disappointed, but it was streaky. It was hot and cold. It was up and down with Antonio Gibson. So, Aaron, can we trust Antonio Gibson this year as an RB2?
Yeah, as an RB2. Absolutely. Okay. Last year, the problem with last year, and I was guilty of this. You guys know how I felt about Antonio Gibson. The problem was people thought he could end up being a top 5 running back. Like the way they were like, if they used him like Christian McCaffrey, which I'll be honest, I still believe if they used him in the way they used Christian McCaffrey, he has the skill set. He's shown to be versatile, catch out of the back. They're just not using him that way. So maybe he didn't live up to that top 5 hype, and everybody's like, man, it was so disappointing. Sure it was from a top 5 level, but he had 10 total touchdowns. He still ran for 1,000 yards, had another 300 through the air, and he was RB12. If you ask me, hey, I'm drafting him as RB15, RB16, RB17, okay, that's a win. You're going to take him there all day long. You're just not going to – don't expect what you expected going into the draft from last year. So I believe right now he's going somewhere around RB19-ish.
Yeah.
Like, sign me up. He'll never make it to RB19 in my leagues. I'll draft him before then. But is he going to be top 10? He'll be right around borderline a late first or a late 1, RB1, if he gets the touches, but he'll definitely be an RB2.
Are you drafting him over Zeke?
No.
Are you drafting him
Vinny?
No.
But I also think Zeke is rated way too low. Hold on. People taking him in the 3rd round. I think
what I'm getting at here is you did say, will you draft him at RB19? I might draft you. Your words. You might draft him before RB19.
I will draft him.
So what I'm trying to get at here is which running backs ahead of RB19 you would take him over. As of right now. That's where I'm trying to get at. Ezekiel Elliott is one of those. You won't take him over him. David Montgomery.
I love David Montgomery. Probably not. No.
Cam Akers.
Yes, I would take him over Cam Akers.
Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I probably would take him over Saquon this year.
James Conner.
No.
So you're right around RB16. Right around RB16, RB17 for Antonio Gibson, because I don't think you're going to take Antonio Gibson over guys like Leonard Fournette, Aaron Jones,
No.
Alvin. You're not going that high. So RB17 is your highest on Antonio Gibson.
Yep.
One quick thing on this Antonio Gibson thought process. It's been great that he's been able to finish his RB12 the last 2 years. I do think you will see a slight drop off this year. Ron Rivera has said on multiple occasions, and it can be the smoke. That's fine. But he said on multiple occasions he plans on using a plethora of running backs and a strong committee this year. Antonio Gibson not only might see less work, but specifically around the goal line. And I think that's where the Brian Robinson comes into play. Around the goal line of the touches. Now again,
I don't trust anything Ron Rivera says since he said he was going to use them like Christian McCaffrey just a year and a half ago.
I mean, he probably meant to, and then he got turf toe and burnt toe and big toe and small toe.
But let's be honest. Last year he had 100 or 258 carries. The year before that, he had 170, and he was still RB13. The running back position ends up being that way because so many guys are going to get hurt. There are going to be guys that get hurt, be out for the year, torn ACLs. The one thing I like about Antonio Gibson is he does get banged up, but he doesn't miss a lot of time. He usually comes back, and he's usually trying to play through it. That's important to me. I said it with Josh Jacobs. I'll say it with Antonio Gibson. I like guys like that are willing to play through some nagging injuries.
And on the other side of what I said, I mean, they may say that, they may mean that, they may feel that, but we know once the game is going, if there's a hot hand, no coach is dumb enough to go, all right, well, sit down. I know you're on 112 yards on 3 touches, but let's just rest you. So,
I can't imagine Brian Robinson or J.D. McKissick or Jared Patterson gets the hot hand over Antonio Gibson.
Is there a chance Jared Patterson's cut?
Why?
No.
You telling me all 4 will make the roster, and then it's the Williams and others that'll get cut?
They'll deactivate one every week. The problem is they don't have Jared Patterson. To me, I know Brian Robinson's listed ahead of him in the depth chart. To me, Jared Patterson's the backup right now because he's had experience there. But I don't believe when coaches say that. I believe Antonio Gibson's their lead back. I believe Antonio Gibson is the most talented back they have. And I believe when he's in the game, he's going to get the carries. Now, does that mean if he fumbles, Ron Rivera won't bench him? Nope, because he did it last year. But you see it every time he did it. What happens the next week? Antonio Gibson's right back out there. Absolutely. I don't think the other guys are good enough to supplant him.
Which one of them becomes a tight end next year? That's what it is. Which one of them comes tight end?
Brian Robinson's about a cheeseburger away from a right tackle. So
Eddie Lacy, no. Eddie Lacy, no.
Ate some Bojangles there.
There's precedence. Those Bama running backs, man.
I will
always. What happened to Trent Richardson?
I saw that. I will always go back to the story of me seeing Trent Richardson at a Waffle House on a Saturday night before the Colts were about to play the Jags, at midnight with a bunch of girls at a Waffle House in a not so great area. So I'm like, okay, this is Trent Richardson's life. All right, let's end this show. Let's end our NFC East talk with the Giants here, and we've talked about Saquon. We've talked about running backs. Let's just talk generally. Let's just talk the Giants as a whole. Dylan, rank the Giants' fantasy options.
Yes. Saquon Barkley, Kadarius Toney, Kenny Galladay, Graham Gano.
The kicker went over Daniel
Giants defense. Sterling Shepard. Anonymous.
Wait.
Oh no, Aaron froze at the wrong time.
How the hell you got Sterling Shepard over Daniel Jones?
Am I wrong?
I got Tyrod Taylor over Daniel Jones.
Oh. No, I'm not talking Daniel Jones. Am I wrong for Graham Gano under them?
Yeah. First of all, you don't mention kickers on this show. We don't play in leagues with kickers.
Are we getting rid of kickers in the Saxon?
Yeah, we're not doing kickers,
year?
bro. We're not.
Come on, kickers are the best.
No, kickers are pointless because
they get into field goal range. He bangs them through the post. He's relevant.
Kickers are so pointless because There's only like 4 good ones, and
that's
why
I scout kickers on a weekly basis, and I win.
Not
kickers are so useless. The biggest waste of fantasy football ever. Anyways, Saquon Barkley is the answer here.
That's
Saquon Barkley, and then a bunch of guys, and then Saquon can even have a big question mark next to him, right? Because only if he's healthy. But the rest of the guys, it could be anybody. Would it shock you if you woke up after week 1 and Darius Slayton led the Giants in receiving? Nope. Would it shock you if we woke up after week 2 and it was Wan'Dale Robinson that led the team in receiving? Nope.
Yep.
A little bit.
Would you woke up if you woke up week 3 and it was some random ass tight end on their team that led the team? I wouldn't be surprised. Daniel Bellinger means consistency there.
That sounded like you just named a new person.
Daniel
Shockey. That's what I heard. I heard Daniel Bellinger.
I said it wouldn't shock me. Yeah. Jeremy Shockey for Daniel Bellinger.
Wow.
Jeremy Shockey.
That was wild. All right. Last question on the Giants here, though.
Kick is good.
Does Brian Daboll change anything with this offer? Like, do you think, like, would you talk about being surprised? Would you be surprised by week 8 that there are more fantasy relevant options in New York other than like your Saquon Barkley? Like, Brian Daboll comes in here and makes these guys relevant?
Well, I definitely think there's one big change. I know they will not be running a quarterback sneak on their own 5-yard line with time left.
Amen.
I know that will not happen. So there will be a change. I do think they're going to try to open it up a little bit more. I do think their offense is better this year. They've been so bad the past 2 seasons. But is it going to make Daniel Jones less of a turd?
Nope.
I don't know. Hopefully.
Disrespectful.
Poor Daniel Jones.
He's been a turd. Listen, he has Josh Allen in him. The body, the athletic ability, he really does. The problem is he's been a turd and he hasn't been developed. So can Brian Daboll fix that? I hope so. But I don't know.
So Daniel Jones has some Josh Allen in him, but he also has a massive turd that he just cannot get out.
He's been
you know why he's a turd? Because he went to Duke.
Oh, I see what you did there. All right.
Duke.
That does it for our fantasy outlook, our team by team previews. If you've missed any episodes, if you've missed any of our content, please check us out on all podcasting platforms at Sac City Pod on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. And of course, perfectly clipped videos. AJ's been taking over that role. He's been doing a good job posting the videos now. So you can see everything on YouTube clipped nice and decently for your viewing pleasures on YouTube at Sac City Pod. AJ, take away the rest of the iMovie. Take away the rest of the social read.
Yeah, all right. Sac City Pod. That's who we are. And you know that deal because you follow us on every social media that you have on your phone and on your laptop and on your desktop, on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. Head on over, Sac City Pod. Hit that like, hit that share, hit that love, hit that subscribe. That's the big one. Or follow or so on and so forth. You may not see it on here, but also Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and iHeartRadio and TuneIn. All those places. There is nowhere you look where Sac City Pod shouldn't be on your mind front and center. So head on to Sac City Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And, join the city every Wednesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on the tubes, over there on the books, and sometimes on the tweet. We appreciate all the love. Hashtag GMSC Sac City, baby. Good morning and goodbye.
We'll be back tomorrow for our Fun and Games Friday show live, 10 a.m. Eastern time, right here on YouTube. For your boy, AJ Johnson, for the valedictorian Dylan Kearns, and for my best friend Aaron Mukes, I am me. We will see you tomorrow.
Peace out.